Hello everybody, Dark Skeleton here, and today we have a bunch more Hearthstone cards to go for the Mean Streets of Gadget Sand expansion pack, including one that I think is going to be super sweet. I'll mention that one when we get to it. To get things started, we have the Shaky Zipgunner, which Death Rattle give a random minion in your hand +2/+2. Now, you might be thinking that these cards, as I kind of previously thought, all of these bulky goon cards are just kind of to build up a really solid board over time where just from pure stat value you defeat your opponents because you only have so much removal to go through, and if you run out of damage, well, you run out of damage. But actually, these cards have some synergy, as you'll see with the next Hunter card. So this is a 3-mana, 3/3. In terms of stat value, that's overall pretty good, actually. I mean, 5/5 stats for 3 mana. Yeah, you have to wait a little while for it, but I think in general that's going to be a pretty strong card to play. The downside is, of course, if you play this against a priest, I mean, low priest, right? But yeah, actually, priest might be really strong this expansion. Um, then you have to run into Shadow Madness. Now, if this thing gets Shadow Madness and they manage to kill it off, not only do they steal your 3/3, but they also give one of their minions +2/+2, which is like game over disaster. So that'll be an issue. Let's actually jump straight to that Hunter card I was talking about, the Dispatch Kodo. 4 mana, 2/4. Deal damage equal to this minion's attack as a battle cry. So if you manage to buff this up to a 3 attack minion or a 4 attack minion before you play it, then it becomes even stronger. Now, honestly, you probably wouldn't play this if you don't have it buffed up because it's just a 4 mana 2/4 and deal 2 damage on a 2/4 is pretty weak. I mean, it's kind of comparable to the Stormpike Commando 5 mana 4/2 deal 2 damage. But I think this card just gets a lot stronger when you do have those buff cards. So you play the Shaky Zipgunner. It manages to trigger onto your Kodo, and then you play it as a battle cry, deal 4 damage, and that's pretty good. It's not only synergy, but it's also just really strong. So if you go on to play that kind of deck, I think this is going to be a good card. Okay, Worgen Greaser, one of the basically vanilla whatever cards. So it's a 4 mana 6/3. Obviously, this is pretty weak. You would play it on an Ethereal Conjurer, which is 1 more mana, allows you to discover a spell because that gets you extra card value. But a 4 mana minion that doesn't even cycle and has this kind of stat line is just overall really weak. So it's going to be pretty bad in almost all cases, I think. Exception would be if there was kind of charge combo deck, but Blizzard's been trying to stop those things as best they can, so probably not so great. Maybe Conceal Rogue could use it somehow, but I don't think it will ever be good enough to put in a deck. Okay, last for the vanilla crap cards. Hired Gun is a 3 mana 4/3 taunt. That is a new stat line, but overall, you don't really want 3 health on a taunt minion. Yeah, it might force them to trade in, but what you're going to be going up against is a 3/2, the 2 mana 3/2, and if you use a 4/3, a 3 mana 4/3 to block a 2 mana 3/2, they probably add an effect like Ooze or deal 1 damage or something like that. You're really falling far behind, so this is just a weak card. I guess it would be an okay pickup in Arena. 4/3s usually do kind of on average or slightly below average there, so it wouldn't be too terrible there, but not for Constructed. Okay, Blowgill Sniper. It's a 2 mana neutral Murloc. Battlecry deal 1 damage, which is fairly interesting. I think this is the first Battlecry Murloc? No, that's not true. There's 2 other ones. Those are the Seers, which give +2 health to all Murlocs or deal 2 damage to all non-Murlocs. But this is the first one that actually fights for board control. So if you're playing a Murloc deck, this probably wouldn't be too bad. This is probably one of the better Murlocs. I think a 2/1 deal 1 damage is probably slightly better than the 2/1 also summon a 1/1 Murloc. Deal 1 damage is kind of a bit more versatile. Battle cries like that help you gain the board back, and board control is pretty important for Murloc decks. The problem is there going to be a traditional, just like rush your face down Murloc deck that's actually good enough to justify cards like this? I mean, maybe they have the new Murloc Legendary, which summons Murlocs from your decks, so it's not out of the question, but overall it's still looking pretty weak to me. And I don't think you would ever play this in a non-Murloc deck just because there's stronger cards like Flame Juggler. Why not just play a 2/3 that deals 1 damage to a random enemy rather than a 2/1 that deals 1 damage? Or hell, you could even argue This card isn't really that much better than Elven Archer, because Elven Archer costs 1 mana and only has 1 less attack. But hey, it's not too bad for a Murloc deck. We'll have to see. Okay, Dispatch Kodo, we've already touched on that a little bit. Overall, pretty weak by default, but if you want to play that hand buffing deck, this would be one of the reasons you do it. The concept is kind of cool, buffing minions up before you play them, and then hitting the board with a big, like 4/6 that also Battlecry deals 4 damage for 4 mana, and then that becomes pretty good. Backroom Bouncer, a new neutral card. This one's probably going to be pretty weak. 4 mana for 4. The stat line is less than stellar. Whenever a friendly minion dies, gain +1 attack. I kind of compare this to the Siege engine, which was a 5 mana 5/5, I believe. And that gained 1 attack every time you gained armor. It never saw play. It was a pretty bad mech. I think this is kind of in the same category. It's a 4 mana 4/4. That its effect kind of sucks. You could say maybe you could try it in Zoo or something like that. But the stat line just isn't really good for board control. It's good for hitting your opponent hard. And, yeah, I just don't really see where it would fit in. It just dies too easily. Why would you play this over, say, a Darkshire Councilman, which can also get considerably bigger, generally speaking, than this guy probably would, and has 5 health, and costs 1 less mana. Okay, Dirty Rat. This is the one I'm really excited about. A 2 mana 2/6 taunt. Battlecry, your opponent summons a random minion from their hand. So, if you're playing this against a control deck, and you're an aggro deck, you're probably going to get wrecked because you're going to summon their Ragnaros or something like that, so obviously this isn't something you put in an aggro deck. But, in control decks, I think this card's really going to shine for multiple reasons. One, if you're going up against a really aggro-heavy deck, like decks that play Tunnel Trogs or Paladin aggro decks that just play 1-drops, then you're going to get something like a 2/4 or 2/5 stat line for 2 mana against whatever they get played, which is pretty good. Not only that, but it also has taunt, so it's going to be good at blocking those aggro decks from being able to rush you down. Also, you could say, like in a priest deck, 6 health is a lot of health, so you can heal that up, and it might actually be a pretty good priest card in general. But against the control decks, how you would play it, or how I would play it, is you hold on to it until the later game, where most of the minions in the hand just be those really heavy hitters, like a Ragnaros or something, right? And normally, you want to play cards like Ragnaros or Ysera or N'Zoth the Corruptor, getting a lot of value. But if you force summon them with Dirty Rat, and you kill it off immediately with a Big Game Hunter, a Shadow Word Death, a Siphon Soul, any kind of control card, then they lose all of the benefit of that card. You just basically take it out before they can get that instant effect. And if you know anything about Control Hearthstone, it's that in order to justify playing a really high-end legendary, like an 8-drop or a 9-drop Ysera Ragnaros, they have to do something when they hit the board, because it's just too expensive to lose immediately. So, if you can take the big cards out without them getting that extra value for having those huge cards in the deck, that this card could really destroy control decks if you hit the right targets. And I think in control versus control matchups like Priest versus Warrior, generally people are going to be hanging on to their big cards like a Grimoire Hellscream until the perfect time. So if you force them out of their hand, this can really be a game changer, I think. And yeah, not like a legend player, but I think I've seen enough matches of Priest versus Warrior to know that if you screw over their Ragnaros, that does mean something. So yeah, super cool card. Dirty Rat might be one of my favorites this set. In some ways, it's kind of like a Death Lord. And if you know anything about Wild right now, it's that Death Lord is super strong. Partially for fatigue, but also for screwing your opponent's game plan over. Like if you get the N'Zoth out early, then that can just be the end of the game, and N'Zoth versus N'Zoth. So yeah, pretty cool cards for today. I've been Dark Skeleton. Thank you guys for watching once again, and hopefully I'll see you guys in my future content. Till then, guys.